Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and the late Benjamin Dowling. Welcome to this meeting of the Cabinet of Portsmouth City Council. I'm Joel Van Jackson, leader of the Council, and I chair this meeting. So looking through these things, I think everybody has been here for meetings when we're in this, doing it in this way, but the fire alarm, if it goes off, is real, and we meet by Queen Victoria, and make sure people do sign out. We have 2 meetings with 3 sets of papers. So we can't start the second meeting till 1:10. So Mike Sellers will have to speak slowly to use that time up. But if we go through and introduce ourselves, then everybody will know. Susie, do you want to go first?
Thank you. Susie Horton, Cabinet Member for Children, Families and Education.
Can I just check, James? Oh no, yes, so I've now got visuals I didn't have before.
Lynn Stagg, Cabinet Member for Traffic and Transportation.
Hugh Mason, Cabinet Member for Planning Policy.
Hi, Darren Sanders, Cabinet Member for Housing and Preventing Homelessness.
Mr. Ashmore?
Dave Ashmore, I do Community Safety and Environment.
Ben Dowling, Cabinet Member for Culture, Leisure and Economic Development.
Chris Atwell, Cabinet Member for Communities and Central Services.
James?
Thank you, Leader. James Harris, Senior Local Democracy Officer.
Mike?
Mike Sellers, Port Director, Portsmouth International Port.
James Berry, Solicitor.
Julian Pike, Deputy Director of Finance.
Cal Corkery, Labour Councillor for Charles Dickens Ward. I was on the short-lived subcommittee, shareholder subcommittee, so that's why I think I was invited to come along today. I'm just keen to hear what's said about it and potentially, if allowed, make some comments.
It's always a pleasure to see you, Cal, at every meeting of the Cabinet. So you have a standing invite to each and every meeting. Tom?
Tom Southall, Assistant Director of Property and Investment.
Tristan Samuels, Director of Regeneration.
And Cal, we've moved the time of the meeting so it's more convenient for George. So it's in his lunch break. But that doesn't seem to have worked its way through, but we have done so to make life slightly easier both for him and Simon. If that's unnecessary, let us know. Okay, so I think we have apologies from Kimberly, who I think is on her way here, and Jason, who had a very long night shift. So, going through the first, let's have a look and see which of these agendas. So that's apologies for absence. In terms of declarations of interest, Mr. Balfe, in his ever-changing view of where I have an interest and don't, say that I have an interest in item 5 only. So we'll do that at the end. And as has become traditional, Councillor Dowling is going to step in to chair that bit of the meeting that I can't do about companies.
Yes.
Good. Is that all right with colleagues? Okay. So record decisions on the 15th of December. Colleagues, are you happy with those minutes? Okay. Thank you very much indeed. Now, I think we have to do, the first thing is the Port Master Plan. Mike, welcome. Do you want to take us through this? I know you're doing a presentation tomorrow at full council. Yes, you are. But anyway, or David, you're doing it.
No, I did send you an email about this, Leader.
Yeah, well,
you'll be surprised to hear.
I will get to it at some point. So, all right, well, let's do this now and then work out council meeting later. Mike, you can treat this as a dress rehearsal for tomorrow.
Well, Well, I haven't brought a presentation with me, but thank you, Leader, members. This is really just to seek your approval around the principles outlined in the Port Master Plan, the Development Master Plan for the next 20 years for the port. The last time Portsmouth International Port developed and published a master plan was in 2006, and due to quite a number of significant changes, perfect storm as we're referring to it as at the port, around Brexit, the pandemic, and the way that trade is changing, we have spent the last 2 years on and off, not the full 2 years due to the pandemic, with a master plan consultant, Royal Haskonin, who have helped develop the principles around the master plan. We set them 8 objectives, and that's in the paper. That was around producing a clear 20-year port development master plan, promote the Green Ports initiatives, make improvements to our cruise and ferry terminal, make improvements to the load-on, load-off cargo facilities, enhance port integration with the city around the city vision, post-Brexit preparedness, improve port resilience, and promote technology and innovation. I won't go through all the details around this, but there are 4 themes around the Port Master Plan. The first one is around environment and sustainability. We have set objectives and targets to be the first net carbon neutral port by 2030 and the UK's first zero emission port by 2050. And I'm sure you're all aware we've been very successful in the low-hanging fruit, and a lot of the sustainability projects around our landside operations, particularly working with the energy team at PCC. So by the end of this year, 3/4 of our energy will come from a renewable source for our landside operations. The big change over the next 10 to 20 years is around shipping and green shipping, and the way that transition is moving towards new fuels, and we need to be prepared for that. So this master plan focuses around the arrival of LNG, liquid nitrogen gas, powered ferries, with the first one arriving in March for Brittany ferries, and also shore power, the provision of shore power for the ferries, with hybrid ferries arriving in 2025, and cruise, and with the cruise developments. Also the society and economy, and this is very much the principles around the municipal port and the fact that we are run by the city, and it's important that we are a major contributor when it comes to development and also jobs and local jobs. Resilience and security is another key theme for us, and that's certainly around trade and the way trade is changing, and in particular trading with Europe post-Brexit and the end of the EU transition. So our developments are looking at more trailer parking, more freight parking, and the fact that we are fairly landlocked, we're in advanced discussions with a landowner within a 6-mile radius of the port, just north of the port. And that's to provide pre-gates, storage, and holding freight before it needs to arrive at Portsmouth International Port, and again, reducing any potential congestion on the M275. And then adding to that, the other theme is around innovation and technology. We're quite proud of the fact that we're collaborating with the university with a number of SMEs around new technology, automation, and improvements in the way that we operate at the port. What that means in terms of the city and the economy, we will see within the next 10 years almost a doubling of the economic contribution from 190 million to 357 million, and then also within the 10 years in terms of local jobs, moving from 2,400 to 4,300 local jobs. Thank you.
Okay, Mike, thanks very much indeed, and I think it's absolutely the right time to do a Port Master Plan. It is almost 20 years since the last one, and it's really good to be looking forward, but I think it's also essential that we understand that the need is to diversify what the port is doing. To just rely on the fruit trade in Portico and on Brittany on the other side is not a way of either making sure that we make a decent profit or that that we've got something that's sustainable when change happens. So I think the movement into cruise is good, and the diversification in Portico to make sure that we're looking at grain, aggregate, wind turbine blades, etc. It's all remarkably sensible. But I think it's also right, we have to be realistic that the ferry trade with commercial vehicles is changing, and if we don't reflect that and we don't make sure that we have facilities for people to be able to bring their lorries and their trailers to Portsmouth, but to leave the trailer and the cab to leave, and for us to have to look after that trailer, it is really important. If we don't have that, then we won't be able to continue with the ferry services to France and Spain in the way they operate at the moment. The commercial part of it is hugely important. So I think this is really good, and I think we need to be very grateful that the profits that come from this go into defending public services in the city, whether that's youth services, children's social care, adult social care, whatever. This is really important, and also helps, of course, to keep our council tax lower than Southampton's, which is always a good thing. So, colleagues, this goes to full council. Any other thoughts? Any thoughts on this, or are we happy just to send it on? Thank you very much indeed. Is everybody happy? Okay. Yep. Okay. Thank you very much indeed, Mike. Look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Moving on, we now finish meeting A and start meeting B. James, you have to push buttons.
I do indeed, just like to formally close this meeting.
This meeting is now formally closed. The next meeting is now formally started. We don't need to go through introductions because we've done them all. We don't need to go through apologies because we've done them before. We don't need to do declarations of interest because we've done them before. We don't need. Have we got another set of minutes, James, that we have to officially go through for a separate meeting?
They're not ready yet.
No, excellent. Ben.
Are you sure you have to with those other bits as well?
Well, can we say
presumably from the public's perception, they've only just. This meeting has only just started as of 30 seconds ago, and so
should we take it as a read?
We should follow the agenda.
Should we take it as a read that the apologies and interest given 5 minutes ago are still valid, and the introductions? Are you all the same people that you were 10 minutes ago? Yes? Mr. Ashmore, are you the same person as you were 10 minutes ago?
I was just saying it's a very philosophical question, Leader, but yes, I am.
But just to clarify, Leader, we are the same group of people as in the previous meeting that was at 1 p.m. today in the same room, but this is now a different meeting.
Correct. With the same people doing the same things, with the same people not here and the same interests.
Thank you.
With a different agenda, but only just to cause confusion and difficulty because there have been lawyers involved. I know. There'll be other people in your department, Peter. Anyway, so I have here record of decisions of a cabinet subcommittee, which I wasn't at. So Ben, do you want to propose these?
Propose, Leader.
Colleagues, are you happy with those? Excellent. Item 4. The council as a company owner.
That's me, Leader.
Lovely. Welcome. Leap in.
Indeed. The report before you is very similar to the report that was taken to the subcommittee on the 15th. It sets out the role of yourselves as shareholders and the company owner and the functions that you take with regards to that. What we are seeking your agreement to is for a standing quarterly item on your cabinet agenda in approximately June, September, December and March, where issues concerning the shareholder function and the companies can be reported to you on a regular basis, and then to also authorise the city solicitor to engage the services of local partnerships to provide commercial advice to you in relation to the council's owned companies. The local partnerships, they're an organisation owned by the local government association, the Treasury and the Welsh Government, grounded in the public sector ethos with a background in supporting public sector organisations develop their capabilities in this area. And they have a proposal which is appended to the report, and they are able to provide us with 10 free days of support. So the suggestion is that you delegate that authority to the city solicitor to work up some proposals to you. Unless there's anything else I can answer to.
Thank you very much indeed. Just for clarity, I used to be a non-exec director of local partnerships, but I am no longer so. Somebody else is doing that role. I've got 3 things that I would suggest in terms of changes to the recommendations. I think it's absolutely sensible and right that for the companies that are actively working, that they come here quarterly, and that seems remarkably sensible. I'm much less convinced that companies that are either dormant or not doing very much, i.e. we happen to own a shareholding because we happen to own a bit of a trading estate somewhere in the West Midlands where we have no control over it. I'm not sure a quarterly report saying we've not done anything, but that's not different to what we said in the last report, the last report, and the last report, and the last report, is really much use. So I'm wondering whether an annual thing for those ones would meet the lawyer's requirements. And then finally, I can see Ben wiggling.
Leader, and just on that item, I think everyone agrees on your analysis. I think for this item, all we're approving is a framework of reserved agenda items, and that the individual delegations for each company going forward will determine how often those reports come to Cabinet, or indeed gas, which may well be the next thing you're up to say.
It'll be common sense taking the lead, not lawyers.
I'm sure so long as you are here, Leader, common sense will lead the way.
Okay. Tom, is that all right? Good. Can you say that into a microphone?
Of course. Thank you, Leader. Sorry. Yes, you will find as we come on to the next 3 sets of reports, there's individual recommendations about the frequency of those reports coming back to Cabinet.
Great. Ben, the bit about gas was my last one.
I believe that was a question for each individual delegate. Yes, each individual delegation of authority in relation to each individual company we are a shareholder for.
See, I don't think that's okay, because if one of them, there should be a standard thing that we want cross-party ability to look at what's happened. If a particular
and we
company...
agreed at, so what was agreed at previous cabinets was they would be done on a proportional basis, which is why it can't be blanket across all of them. So for example, something like Portco may have to report more frequently than a maintenance company somewhere else. Okay,
but I think we need to put in a minimum requirement of an annual report to gas. Is that allowable, Peter?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, can we add, could we add that as a recommendation that there is a minimum requirement of a financial report to governance, audit and standards on an annual basis, so there can be cross-party oversight? And you're all right with that, Peter?
As a bare minimum, yeah.
Yeah, lovely. Yeah. Okay. Okay, colleagues, any other thoughts on this particular item? Cal?
Thank you, Leader. I've got a question, and I might follow up if that's okay.
Yeah, of course.
But it would be useful from my perspective, as someone that was invited to participate in the shareholder subcommittee and did participate and attended the training, etc. It would be useful to understand why the decision has changed, because I'm still a little bit unclear about exactly what's changed and the rationale for that.
I think it's because we're not lawyers. and we therefore wanted something that fitted within the decision-making processes of the council. We're keen that we're keen that that people are involved in this, and that's why it's done to public meeting. And I think it's a major step forward to say that we will have a public arena for people to be able to examine what the companies are doing that are owned by the people of the city. So I think that's very sensible. It's just having something where a few cabinet members were in and a few cabinet members were out didn't seem to be particularly logical and highly bureaucratic. But I think it is important that opposition parties are invited to be here for these, but opposition councillors are welcome to all all meetings of the cabinet. And I think it's really important that there is cross-party scrutiny, which is why I'm so keen that the accounts go on a minimum level annually to the governance and audit, so that it is at a cross-party committee. Does that help, Cal?
I still don't quite understand what has changed from your perspective when you originally made the decision about the need for the shareholder subcommittee to now when you say there's no need.
I think we just, having worked it through, we decided this was less bureaucratic. And if we can get rid of bureaucracy that doesn't help, so much the better.
Okay, that's fine. I mean, just, I guess my comment on that, although I'm not a member of the cabinet, but was a role, and I'm not quite sure what my role was, an observer of the previous subcommittee.
In a very similar role as you now is.
Well, not quite. That was the point I was going to make. As a member of the subcommittee, whether I had observer status or not, I was invited to briefings with officers about what the reports were. We were engaged in training so that we understood that we had the skills necessary to properly understand and engage in the decisions. And that's another point I want to make. I think there's a distinction to be drawn between scrutiny and actually participation in decision making. So scrutiny is retrospective. You're talking about things going to GASC, which have already been done, and in GASC can maybe ask some searching questions and look back about whether that was the right thing to do. Whereas my understanding as a shareholder subcommittee is that opposition parties would have been actively involved in the decisions governing those companies at a very high level, kind of determining the business case. So it's not just looking at things once they've already been done, but having more of a proactive involvement in ensuring that those are the right decisions at that right time, and feeding back from an opposition perspective what our views may be. And I think this is a really key function and importance of the council. If we look at what's happened with Lennox Point, clearly there was a failure to build consensus around the right way forward for that project. And actually scrutiny may have helped, but scrutiny would have been retrospective. What would have perhaps been better is more active engagement with opposition councillors and also the wider community in those decisions as they were being made. And in order to avoid another Lennox Point, because the council companies are potentially going to be looking at projects of a similar size and a similar value, I think it's really important that we have that engagement with opposition groups and the wider community as an ongoing process, and not just looking at a report to GASC once a year.
So, Cal, I think my understanding of what I'm expecting to go to governance and audit is not just a look back at what the accounts say, but look forward to what the financial plan is. So it is pre-scrutiny for the coming year, as well as looking backwards to see if the companies hit the targets and the plan that they had set. So I hope that is able to happen. The agendas for what the scrutiny subcommittees of the council do is set by their chairs, all of whom are, with the exception of the health one, but all the others have opposition chairs. So they can choose to examine anything. They don't have to look backwards, they can look forwards as well, and often have done. But but that's in the hands of the opposition parties. So to look at Lennox Point was entirely within the hands of Conservative and Labour councillors, and people have chosen not to do that. So I think there is an argument. I think I agree with you that this was a project championed by our Conservative colleagues and heavily endorsed by them, which we then moved forward. And they inherited it from us because it's a long-standing thing. But their change of mind from being heavily in favour to being heavily against is one that they have taken. I'm not sure taking it through a scrutiny would have helped. I don't know, but it's in the hands of the opposition. I think it's one of the really important things about this council is that we as the administration don't tell the scrutiny committees what they're to look at and what they're not to look at. So it's down to the opposition to choose the things that they want to look at, and that pre-scrutiny is available to people if they want to do so. So I agree with you. I think it is disappointing that maybe that didn't happen, but I think that's very much in the hands of the chairs of those scrutiny committees who are not members of the administration, because we take the view, unlike other councils, where the administration takes all the chairs of all the scrutiny committees. Our view is that, and always has been, that the administration shouldn't take the chairs of all the scrutiny committees. So I hope that this system will work well, but if there's more areas that you would like to look at, you as any other councillor has the absolute right to request a report that comes to Cabinet. So if there's things you want us to look at, do ask, and that's entirely possible to be looked at. We are by nature an inclusive administration. Colleagues, anybody else? No, but I think James Cowles makes a good point that when we're looking at these these outside companies, we need to specifically highlight that to members of the opposition, and we should write probably specifically to the opposition leaders to make sure they know that it's coming and that they are very welcome. If that's all right, James? Okay. All right, Cal, will that help to make sure that there is a specific invitation?
I think it will help. I mean, my general conclusion, I still believe that this is a reduction in cross-party working on these major issues, which isn't in line with the outcomes of the peer review report we've recently had, which said we need greater cross-party engagement. And I think, personally, it's quite clear that moving from a shareholder-specific subcommittee that had cross-party representation, taking an issue from there and putting it to Cabinet, is a reduction in cross-party engagement on those issues.
I think I take the opposite view, that it's an increase, that all the financial reports are going to go to a committee where opposition councillors get a vote. So there is more cross-party engagement where councillors are not just there as observers, but have a real vote on something. So I think this increases it. But we'll probably have a difference of view continuing. Okay, colleagues, with those amendments, are you happy with the report? Thank you very much indeed. We now move on to whichever page I can find. We're not doing item 5, we're leaving that to the end. Sorry, I'm not sure. 53G. Okay, one of the very active companies, Portsmouth Harbour Renaissance Limited. David.
Chairman, I really don't have anything to add to the report. This is an administrative report. It is, as you say, a largely dormant company. We need to talk to those other shareholders and just work that through. Thank you.
Tom, Tristan, anything to add? So, David, if this doesn't do anything, surely we should wind it up.
If it doesn't do anything and doesn't need to do anything, we will wind it up.
Excellent. Colleagues, you happy with that? Cal? Excellent. That was a nod for the minutes. Next one, Magna Park Management Limited. Tom?
Thank you, Leader. Again, this is a fairly administrative piece, although I would point out that in the recommendations it is citing no less than annually returning a report to Cabinet. Happy to take any questions on the report.
Colleagues? Any, Councillor Hugh Mason?
A question, 3.2. It is stated that the Council's National Property Investment Fund, which yields the Council in excess of 9 million per annum, how much does Magna Park yield to us, and what is that currently as a return on invested capital?
And is that confidential, and can you tell us? Tom?
Thank you. It is confidential in terms of breaking down on individual assets. I would happily report back to Councillor Mason on that outside of this meeting.
Thank you. It would be very interesting to know that for this and also for Springvale.
Okay.
Leader, I'm conscious at the start of this meeting we agreed a recommendation around things going to gas on a whatever basis. Can I just get clarity from a senior officer that will now transpire throughout, because we're not going to individually now,
Yes.
etc.?
I think we added it to the blanket report, therefore it encompasses all the individuals. Is that so, Peter? That is so. Okay, Tom, next one. Oh, Lord Tristram, North Harbour.
Thanks, Leader. I'll take this one as Tom's slightly conflicted as a director of the company. So North Harbour Estates Management Limited is a paper which is partly in line with the council as company owner paper that was brought forward, so good practice. The proposal is to report annually. It was a company that we inherited with the purchase of Lakeside, and I have nothing further to add to what's already in the paper.
Okay, colleagues. Anything? No. Okay, thanks very much indeed. Moving on, Springvale. Tristan again.
Yes, Leader. Once again, the Assistant Director is conflicted on this matter, so I'm presenting the paper, and I have nothing further to add to the paper.
Colleagues, anything? Are you happy with this? Okay, thank you very much indeed. Now, let me just check with the different sets of papers that we have been through everything I'm meant to be doing. No, item 10. Julian.
Thank you, Chair. The report sets out the council shareholdings of HCB Holdings, and it also addresses a perceived conflict of interest between our Section 151 officer, who is also a director of HCB Holdings, by recommending a new set of delegations which removes that perceived conflict. Other than that, there's no other items to bring to your attention about the report.
So, Julian, this organisation worries me, and I think this has taken, I don't know, is it 8 years to achieve precisely nothing? Or you may tell me it's achieved less than that, Julian. I would be looking for us to look in detail about whether we should continue to be part of this organisation or not, and it would be helpful to have a report that looked at that as an option from you, Julian, because at the moment I can see little use in having this.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, we can bring a report if that's what you would like us to do. What I would add is the company has progressed quite a long way along the path of achieving its banking licence and is very close to making its final application to the Bank of England for that licence. I would also, just anecdotally as an aside, I was watching a programme over the weekend where a bank or somebody that was applying for a banking status there had spent the last 10 years trying to achieve his licence and is still trying to do that.
Okay. I have Councillor Darren Sanders, Councillor Hugh Mason.
Thank you, Gerald. Julian, when is it expected to actually start properly trading this bank?
Well, the application for a licence which will allow it to operate as an authorised bank with restrictions is expected to go in sometime during this month. The authorisation with restriction would then be expected to be received in July or August 22, with the full licence being granted in Q1 of 2023.
Right, so realistically this time next year is what you're looking at.
That's their current timetable.
That's their current timetable. Has that timetable moved between 2014 and now?
Oh yes, it's moved significantly because of delays in them being able to submit their various applications.
Are any of those delays virus related, Julian?
Some of it could well have been, but there's been a number of other issues around recruitment of staff, the level of diligence, changes to banking regulations. There's been a number of issues.
Okay, thank you. Just one point, it's ultimately up to the leader to decide these things, but given the disparity in our shareholding and the shareholding of everyone else in the company, I think it'll be quite interesting in any future report to see what the impact of us choosing to pull out, as the leader has indicated, might happen, would be on the company, given that it's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 other shareholders in there. Thank you, Julian. Aside from that comprehensive report, and thank you.
Councillor Mason.
I share the concern which has been expressed about this organisation. And if we look at 3.2, we endorsed it at Cabinet in 10th of July 2014, but the nature of our shareholding was totally changed in February 2015, and this is not noted, but when we moved from B to A shares. It is also worth noting, following up my colleagues' comments, that in the material which was presented to full council in 15th of July 2014, it was expected that this organisation would be fully operational by late 2015. My other concern about this is with 7.4 and 7.5 that we do not have any specific right, although we have a 60% shareholding of ordinary A-class shares. We don't have any specific right to appoint directors, and any director any person whom we propose to be a director would still be subject to the unanimous approval of the company's directors, and we could easily be voted down because we only have 30% of the votes.
Yeah, it's an extremely worrying report. In terms of the disparity between investment and ability to influence this. So I would it'd be good to see a report very quickly to look to see if whether we can continue with this or not. Okay, anything else? No, thanks very much indeed. I think now I need to hand over to Ben to him to do his traditional role.
It's amazing how something can become traditional within a matter of months. Thank you, Leader. So item 5 on the agenda, Portsmouth Shipping Limited. Mike?
Thank you, Chair. I should also declare an interest as well, because I'm operationally, as the Director of the Port, I'm responsible for the oversight of Portico, so I sit on the board as well. But this report is to provide the members with an overview of the ownership of Portico Shipping, formerly MMD. and seek approval for the revised Articles of Association that haven't been updated since 2008, and to provide those, delegate the authority to the city solicitor to action as a shareholder and communicate the decision to Portico. I'll leave it at that if anybody's got any questions.
Councillor Mason.
Going through the in the articles of the company, 145, each year the board shall prepare and submit a draft business plan for approval by the shareholders covering the next 3 years. This presumably will come to Cabinet and then through Cabinet to full council, since council are the shareholders. Is that correct?
If that's a question for me, I can tell you it will come to Cabinet. It was Cabinet that approved the 2019 business plan. And yes, under the new articles, that will be annual. Full council, I'm sure somebody else will advise on that.
I think, Councillor Mason, as this remains an executive function, it will report to Cabinet and only would go to full council should Cabinet decide or should full council request it for information. But as decision-making article, it remains with Cabinet. Is that correct? Yeah, various people are nodding. Thank you. Any other questions? In which case I'm also happy, so I think that's approved. Thank you, Mike. Thank you all. End of meeting.